Finding, keeping, and motivating employees is harder than it ever has been before, in part because of a massive recalibration taking place right now around how work fits into our lives. But also, employers still don't know what leads ordinary people to become devoted employees.
Our speaker today is a respected authority on cultivating commitment in the workplace.
The best bosses recognize that their number one job is to create the conditions for people to thrive. That's the gig.
The author of the popular TEDx talk, Why Gossip Starts and Spreads at Work.
And what we know is that if we can move the needle a little bit on the frequency of these behaviors, if we can reduce how often they happen at work, people are happier, their performance is higher, and outcomes are better.
When you say to potential employees or to your current workforce, we have no interest in having you operate at the highest, most taxed level of effort. We don't want you to operate at 100% all the time. We want you to operate at 80% most of the time, so that on hard days when we need you at 100%, you're able to give it to us.
The era of trying to hire the best person for the job is over. We now have to create the best job for the person.
The author of 2 books, Cure for the Common Leader and No More Team Drama, he teaches leaders how to be better bosses and build stronger teams.
Joe's style as a presenter is one of the reasons that I'm super excited that he came up.
Let me tell you, this will change my team.
You felt present, like you wanted to lean in, you didn't want to pick up your phone and scroll through Facebook.
Joe was extremely funny, of course, and he really got to the source of a lot of things that we're seeing on our practice.
No, he's a wonderful speaker.
In between all the funny stories, he always has like these great points that you like want to write down, and then he says something hysterical and you go laughing off on that.
Oh my gosh, he was so funny. He's just very engaging and like you couldn't take your eyes off of him. He's an extremely dynamic speaker, gives just great information, and he's funny.
Like sometimes we do the passive aggressive thing where we're like, hey, just checking in. Everything good? What do you need from me?
He's my son-in-law.
He's your son-in-law. He's a great husband and father. He's your boss. I'm also betting he is responsible for your care later in life as you age, right?
I hope Shelly's listening. People even look at each other in the room. Your friend, your compadre, your bestie at work. You're hearing the speech and you're like, what could possibly happen that would, close down all the movie theaters? If they're so darn busy, how do they have the time to keep track of what everybody else is doing? Let the Spirit move you, sister. If you want to have any hope of finding and keeping devoted employees, you must connect people to their ideal job doing meaningful work for a great boss. Get this right, and you open the door for your teams to achieve extraordinary results.
Organizations all over the country right now are working to engineer these things yesterday to attract the people working on your teams today to be better positioned for success tomorrow.
We have to constantly refill the gas tank for our folks. And one of the ways we do that is by reminding them over and over again that their work makes a profound difference in the lives of others.
You have a tremendous opportunity to reinvent your team and to make their human experience tenfold better, because we can help them better integrate their work into their lives. And quite frankly, if we don't do that, they are going to go someplace else.
This is an adapt or die moment for leaders and employers of all sizes, and for how we think about jobs and motivation and work. To have any hope of succeeding in the future of work, we must reinvent the employee experience to meet the needs and values of a changed workforce.
So by a show of hands, how many of you here today are someone's boss? Raise your hand. You're someone's boss. Okay, congratulations. You are the topic of dinner conversation at other people's houses. Not sure if you ever thought about it, but trust me, more than once you have been the star of that show. If you've ever met an employee's spouse for the first time and gotten a funny look, now you know why. And if you are seated next to your boss right now, and I just created a little bit of an awkward moment for you, I sincerely apologize. But it's true, we are the topic of dinner conversation at other people's houses, whether you are someone's boss or you just have influence where you work as a member of the team. And it's because the people we spend time with at work directly influence what we think and believe about our work. And that, in turn, directly influences a person's commitment. So that's what I do. I speak and write about commitment in the workplace. We don't have to rack our brains to understand what leads people at work to care and try and give their all. There are mountains of social science research that point us in the right direction. And I'd like to share some of that with you here today. Sound good? So a couple of disclaimers. I'm going to ask you some questions along the way, and I would like to invite you to shout out your answers. So if you were hoping that your energy expenditure this morning would be limited to sit, listen, coffee, I'm so sorry. That's not how this is going to go. The other thing that I want you to know is that I have a downloadable digital toolkit that accompanies the program this morning with some resources that you're going to get from me that you can start using at work and with your teams right away. And one of those resources is a copy of some of these content slides that you'll see up here. So take pictures, do whatever you'd like to do to capture that, but know that you are getting some of that stuff. Sound good? All right. Let's talk a little bit about commitment. Let's start out by defining what that is. By a show of hands, how many of you have someone on your team right now who shows up every day and gives it all they've got, day in and day out consistently? These are your rock star, superstar employees at work. Keep your hands up. Almost every hand in the room goes up. Great. I want to ask you a little bit about these folks. And so I'm going to come down here for just a second. Everybody in the front row is seriously regretting sitting in the front row right now. And I'm going to ask you about these folks, and I need a little bit of help with this. I need one volunteer. You're not going to do anything weird. We're not doing trust falls, okay? That's not happening. I just need somebody to take notes. Who's a good note taker right here? She totally, look over to your right. She's pointing at you. Wow. Would you help me out for just a second? Can I ask you to help me out? What's your name?
Adrian.
And where are you from, Adrian?
Port St. Lucie.
Are you really regretting sitting in the front row right now?
Very much.
Okay, that's all right. I promise I'm not going to have you do anything weird.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a pen and some paper.
Great.
And I'm going to ask these folks a question. And when I say go, they're going to start calling out all their answers. And I want you to just write down as many of the things that you hear as fast as you can. Can you do that for me?
Great.
I'm going to give the lovely people around you here permission to help you. Look, she even has, what a friend. She has her paper out already. She's like, I got your back. And it was Adrian?
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Adrian. Okay, here's my question. Are you ready, Adrian? Okay. You have a rock star, superstar employee on your team. They show up consistently with commitment. They are dedicated to their work. In what ways do those people impact your workplace? People on this side of the room, call out some of your answers. That was terrible. People in the middle, how do these folks impact your workplace? Somebody give me an answer. Retention. Keep going. Keep going. Help Adrienne out. She's bored. Effort. Retention. Keep going. Attention to detail. Morale. Anything else? Production. Yep. Okay, I'm going to go over it. You thought you were off the hook over here. How do these folks impact your workplace? Call out some answers.
Get things done, right?
Get things done. Efficiency. Excellent customer service. Innovation. Keep going.
Meet deadlines.
Consistency. They meet deadlines. Patient retention. One more time. You don't have to micromanage them. Can I get an amen? Listen, if the Spirit moves you today at some point, just go with it, okay? Adrian, how are we doing?
Good.
Okay, can you read off a couple of the ideas that came out?
Motivation, effort, morale, production, customer service, consistency, micromanagement.
Adrian did a great job. Can we give her a round of applause? Thank you very much. I'm going to steal that back from you. We have folks who come into the workplace and give it all they've got, don't we? And if you have somebody on your team who does all the things that Adrian just read out loud, please take a minute and give thanks to whatever God you pray to that they are there. Because you can't live without them, right? It turns out that there are reasons they show up in that way. And some of those reasons are about their internal wiring, but more than any other factor are the conditions they experience in the workplace, the conditions that are created by their direct supervisors and by their team leaders. When I asked you if you have a rock star, superstar employee on your team, you pictured somebody's face in your head, didn't you? I would like to invite you, when you go back to your sites after today, at the very least, to pull that person whose face popped into your head, pull that person aside, please, and thank them for their commitment, because they drive everything. They drive everything at work. What we know is that every metric you care about in the workplace is tied to commitment. You rattled off some of those metrics. Service excellence scores, patient experience scores, revenue, time. How many people here who supervise have had their time, attention, and energy devoured by someone who is not committed? If yes, say yes. Yes. And an amen. See, like I said, if the Spirit moves you at any point in time. Commitment is the energy and effort that people bring to their work. It's an emotional and psychological dedication. Commitment is obligation and duty mixed with effort. What I want you to understand is that there is a space between doing the minimum and giving it all I've got. And researchers refer to this space as something called discretionary effort. And only a portion of our workforce accesses that gear. Only a portion of our workforce gives us discretionary effort. What I'd like to ask you to think about is how many? What percentage of your team are those rockstar, superstar employees? What percentage of your team comes to work every day and gives it all they've got? I'm going to show you in just a second what percentage of the US workforce shows up in this way. So for right now, come up with a number in your head. What percentage of your team gives 100% consistently? And when I count to 3, I would like you to yell out your number with gusto. Are you ready? Yes. Okay, see, this was the participation part referenced earlier. What percentage of your team gives it all they've got consistently day in and day out? 1, 2, 3. This side of the room, 1, 2, 3. 60. I heard 60, I heard 70, I heard none. This side of the room, 1, 2, 3. 60. That was just a cacophony of sound. I have no idea what you said. Here's what I will tell you. This number in the US workforce right now is at an all-time high. What we know is that right now, and healthcare, the data I'm going to show you right now is for all industries, but healthcare is the same. Right now, the number of folks who access discretionary effort, who are consistently committed, who live in the space between doing the minimum and giving it all I've got, is 35%. At an all-time high. I mean, hooray? That's right. 35%. Now, I do a lot of training around the country. I do a lot of leadership development work, a lot of management training. It's almost all in healthcare. And I meet folks who view this number in very different ways. Some people see a good news narrative. Some people see a bad news narrative. By a show of hands, how many of you see this number and think it's good news? Okay. How many of you see this number and think it's bad news? How many of you think that sounds like a trick question, Joe, and I don't want to answer? Okay. The folks who tend to see it as good news say 1 out of 3, that's pretty good. And maybe we can add some more folks to that if we try a little harder. And none of that is wrong. But when I look at this number, I don't see a good news narrative. I see a scary as hell narrative. I'm sorry, we're at Disney. I should not swear. A scary as heck narrative, gosh darn it. For 2 reasons. The first is this. Here's what we know about the way people show up in the workplace. Right now, 1 out of 3 people at work are contributing to your success. 2 out of 3 are standing in their way. Sometimes working in healthcare feels like rolling boulders uphill, yes? Can you imagine? I got another amen, thank you. Let the Spirit move you. If you are rolling a boulder uphill by yourself, and you've got 2 co-workers on the other side pushing back down, what is eventually going to happen to you? You get run over, or you leave. Guess what's happening to our 35% in the workforce? They're getting run over, and they're leaving. Because we're not taking the actions necessary to create the conditions that allow these folks to thrive and allow some of the folks next to them to become them. That's the first reason this is a scary as heck narrative, because 1 out of 3 people are contributing to our success, and 2 out of 3 are standing in their way. The other reason I think this is such a scary narrative is far more personal. So these are my kids. Thank you. There it is. One more time. Yes, there it is. See, the list of things that I do well is not very long, but making cute babies is on the list. That is Lily on your left. She is 9. That is Miles in the middle. He is 7. That's Henry on the right, and he's a lunatic. He is. And here's what I know about these kids. Because they are my blood, because they are my offspring, it is virtually guaranteed that they are going to do something stupid or going to be terribly clumsy. But it is guaranteed that they are going to hurt themselves making bad choices. In fact, that's happened already because kids get hurt, right? Kids fall down, they scrape their knees, they break some bones. But kids get hurt, and they will get hurt again. Or they'll get sick. Kids get sick. My kids have gotten sick. Thankfully, they've recovered from everything that has come along, and they will get sick again. And when that happens, hopefully it's something routine, but maybe not. Maybe it'll be something a little scarier that we will have to navigate. But at some point down the line, in the years ahead, these kids are going to get hurt or they're going to get sick. And I'm going to take them to the doctor or to the hospital. I'm going to walk into an emergency room or the pediatrician's office, primary care office, urgent care. Maybe I walk into one of your offices. And here's what I know. When I hand what is most precious to me in this world over to a member of your team, I got a 1 out of 3 shot of handing my child to someone who accesses the space between doing the minimum and giving it all I've got. It's not good enough. It is not good enough for my kids. It's not good enough for yours. It's not good enough for my wife, my family, my friends and neighbors, and it's not good enough for yours. The reason that I'm here today and not with them is because I am on a mission to improve commitment in the workplace, to rid the workplace of bad bosses who don't know how to create the conditions that lead to commitment. Do you think that 1 out of 3 is good enough? No. Do you want to change it? Yes. Do you want to talk about how? Yes. Well, it's a good thing I'm here.